Welcome to this third and final day of our 11th Commonwealth Business Forum. Welcome back to the Guildhall. It suddenly feels to me like a long time since I was last here on Monday, but I know some of you were enjoying an extraordinary 700-person banquet here with trumpeters and all the regalia of the City of London. It's quite difficult to imagine that was happening here in this room last night. The AV team, Paul and his team, have done the most amazing job in turning that around in time. It's quite astonishing what can be achieved. We're in this room for the next 3 sessions. It's short and sharp and quick. We have a number of world leaders coming to join us today, and it should be a fascinating 3.5 hours. I'm going to take you through the program. But to do this session and to introduce her panel, I'm going to introduce Margaret Doyle, who's a partner at Deloitte, as well as balancing an incredibly successful TV career. So I'm going to hand over to someone who's better at this than me. Margaret, do you want to come up with your panel and take seats? Minister as well, and Margaret will take proceedings from there.
Thank you very much, John, and it is a pleasure to be back here in this wonderful hall, having enjoyed the city in all of its pomp last night. So the theme for today's panel is investing for the next generation, an important theme, and the key question that we are asking is, how can investors and business and political leaders better use their, or indeed our, influence, since we are those political, investing and business leaders, how can we use our influence to encourage decision-making for long-term economic and social good? It's a theme that, of course, resonates particularly within this forum, the Commonwealth Forum, because this is a family of nations that shares values around the rule of law, values around a free press, values around governance, and of course we also share a lingua franca in the English language. John explained to you that I come to you from Deloitte. I've also had a media career, but my job here today is twofold. It is to keep us to time because, as John said, we've got a packed program this morning, and at 11 o'clock we have another fantastic session on the Sustainable Development Goals. But it's also to make sure that you get the best return on investment on your investment here today, which is your time. This is your time here, this is your panel, and so I encourage you, while we hear from our speakers, to have those questions in mind for our speakers so that we have a full and frank discussion after the speeches have been made. I'm really thrilled to have 3 great panelists here today, bringing us 3 very different perspectives. The session is going to be kicked off by the Minister of Economy from Cameroon, and Mr. Alamine Ousmane May, and he is going to explain to us the benefits and attractions of investing in Cameroon. He will be followed by Robin Watson, who is the Chief Executive of Wood Group, and he'll tell us a little bit more about Wood, but which is a leading services provider, business to business, particularly in the oil and gas space. And then finally, we'll have Gaurav Burman, who represents Durbar International, which is a 5th generation Indian company, a leading company in the fast-moving consumer goods space, so representing a very different industry, investing the subcontinent of India, and also representing a consumer business. So without any more ado, I would like to invite the Minister to address the hall. Minister.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Honorable Ministers, the Chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, business executives, ladies and gentlemen, I'm highly honored to deliver this address here today on behalf of His Excellency Paul Biya, President of the Republic of Cameroon, at this Commonwealth Business Forum, which has as focus investing in future generations. May I also seize this opportunity to extend the fraternal greetings of my country's head of state to the many head of states and government who have honored with their presence at this all-important gathering of our Commonwealth family in order to chart a fresh path to global prosperity and increase the mutual benefit for our 2.4 billion citizens. Permit me finally to express our gratitude to the Right Honourable Patricia Sutherland for her excellent preparation of this forum. These words of encouragement are equally extended to Lord Marland of Woodstock, the chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprises and Investment Council, and Mr. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, for their relevant actions in favor of increased intra-Commonwealth trade and for hosting this August event. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Commonwealth Business Forum is holding at a time when our global community is facing tremendous challenges, including the rise of terrorism and insecurity, a downturn of the international finance system, unfavorable commodity prices, just to name a few. All of these recurrent issues are translated into increased poverty and vulnerability for some states, most of whom belong to the developing world. It's our collective responsibility to build a world that is inclusive and promotes the equitable development of all peoples. In other words, it is our undeniable duty to invest in the next generation by initiating mutually beneficial and long-term endeavors that concretize our collective belief in a shared, prosperous future. When we consider the huge percentage of our populations that are below the age of 30, we must be constantly reminded of this urgent need to hand down to future generations a world that is safer, more secure, just, prosperous, and more inclusive. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, indeed, young people under 30 years of age make up more than 60% of the population of Commonwealth countries. In my country, Cameroon, for example, youths under the age of 25 make up over 60% of the country's population. It should go without saying that investing in this segment of the population is investing in the future. In the futures of our respective countries, the Commonwealth, and the world at large. Speaking to young people in Cameroon on 10 February 2012, the Cameroonian head of state underscored the fact that, I quote, "A strong and ambitious nation must rely on a youthful and large population," unquote. Integrating our young people's rights, needs, and aspiration in investment policy is therefore not a choice. We need to get it right with the youth and for the youth in order to draw the dividends of such an advantageous demography. The very big question today is what we can do to invest in this generation. I mean, what we can do to ensure that young people look at the future with hope and aspiration of a better condition than what our generation has experienced. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, investing in the next generation means investing in their education. There are approximately 17 million primary-age children and 16.4 million youths out of school across the Commonwealth. We have to invest in ensuring that these students get at least 12 years of formal schooling and learn the right skills that will ease their integration into the labor market. We must scale up our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda, which highlight the need for access to education for all and goes beyond physical infrastructure to ensuring equitable and equal access to quality education. Indeed, it does not suffice to simply get the next generation to school. We must ensure they are in school and are learning by providing them with the tools they need to succeed in education. This is a major challenge for a country like mine, Cameroon, which rank at the 51 percentile in access and at the 27 percentile in learning. We as nations of the Commonwealth need to strengthen our capacity to reconsider as restructuring and replanning the education we are giving to the next generation in order to make it more effective and of relevance for the future. Investing in the next generation also means showing concern for the state of the planet we are going to bequeath to them. We must ensure that we leave a planet that is safe, habitable, and better than what we made by committing to reduce our footprint on the ecological system. It is important for us as countries and as the Commonwealth family to reaffirm our commitment to the fight against climate change. Our countries need to access the much required funding to build resilience to climate change and disaster risk and foster climate-smart growth. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to recall that to invest in the next generation also means keeping the next generation alive and well. Poor health in the youth population can be detrimental to national economies, as could be seen in the direct economic losses incurred to treat medical conditions. With the upsurge of non-communicable diseases, we need to lay specific emphasis on their prevention and treatment among children and young people. Most of the habits responsible for this type of alignment are developed during childhood and adolescence. The majority of premature global deaths due to non-communicable diseases occur in low and middle-income countries, which make up the largest part of the Commonwealth membership. We need to uphold and deliver on these agreed ambitions, notably the Commonwealth's 2016 Colombo Declaration, which sets a minimum investment of 6% of GDP on health systems, especially for the youth. I must admit, this is no easy commitment to uphold for countries facing several other challenges. Cameroon, for example, currently spends about 4.02% of its GDP in health. This year, Cameroon will be setting up a universal healthcare system, which will require an initial amount, $2.4 billion, that shall be mobilized through preliminary collections. May I further underscore the understanding that to invest in the next generations requires us to invest in building economies that do not only offer enough growth, but also make available possibility to absorb the ever-increasing youthful workforce in many of our countries. While recognizing that a variety of coordinated initiatives and programs to increase the youth employment and provide an educational system that guarantees a harmonious insertion into the national and international society are undertaken in many countries. Much, however, still needs to be done if our nations have to successfully trade this unpleasant challenge of youth unemployment. It is therefore crucial to boost youth participation in development through direct and indirect financing of business incubators, and startups, and to encourage the rise of new industrial actors in the Commonwealth. Also, consistent investment in education and vocational training should arm our youth with the know-how and enthusiasm greatly needed to achieve the best in a global society marked by increased competition and interdependence. Moreover, it is important to harness creativity in innovative, new and emerging technologies, in renewable energies, in food transformation process, as well as in ecological and sustainable options to development if we have to get our youth out of unemployment. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, you will agree with me that investing in the next generation requires us to invest in good governance and peace. Governance which places the citizen at the center of the public action and builds on the diversity of the Commonwealth as an invaluable opportunity is the essence of investing in the next generation. Good governance encourages inclusive participation in development objectives and decision-making It incites trust in institutions and the outcomes of the decisions of leaders. It is the foundation which enables the youth to take bold steps in entrepreneurship and creativity to express their ingenuity in the most positive way in the realization of boldly innovative and solutions to some of the most challenging problems in our society. Also, good governance is essential for peace and development, particularly as wars and conflicts are undeniably costly. Conflicts decimated the active population, who are the key players in every economy, and set countries backwards by leaving survivors maimed and dependent, imposing extra efforts and resources to unlock their full potential. It is for this reason that investing in the next generation implies investing in eradicating conflicts and wars and countering violent extremism and terrorism. It requires more promoting peace at all levels through the popularization and adoption of core values like tolerance and respect, which will enable all our citizens to exploit their full potential in security and without fear. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me at this juncture to end my statement by affirming that investing in the next generation is creating the right environment which will inspire and motivate the Commonwealth family, especially the next generation of Commonwealth leaders, to dig deep within themselves to offer their most priceless talents and contributions to build the future we want. On that note, my delegation would like to wish us all fruitful deliberation and outcomes at this 2018 session of the Commonwealth Business Forum. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that very eloquent argument as to, for one very good reason why we should invest for the next generation, which is simply that they are so numerous, not only in your country of Cameroon, but of course across the Commonwealth. It now falls to me to introduce our next speaker, who is Robin Watson, who is the Chief Executive of Wood Group. And I've seen Robin's very thoughtful speech, and I look forward, Robin, to hearing you share it with us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Good morning, everyone, and it's a real honour to be asked to speak to you today. I'm especially pleased as Wood Chief Executive to be supporting the Commonwealth Business Forum as a precursor to the Heads of Government meeting. I do think it falls on all of us to ensure we're properly investing for the next generation. And I think this is doubly important when we consider the level of disruption around the world today. So what I'd like to do is just share with you what I see as four of the most significant generational disruptors of the age, and propose that we all, private companies, public institutions and governments, actually should take the opportunity to embrace these disruptors rather than actually fight them. Just by way of context, I'm really fortunate to be the Chief Executive of a company that operates in some 60 countries across the world, and we employ 55,000 people. We actually are a global leader in project engineering and technical services delivery across a broad range of industrial end markets. We've got a leading role in some of the most pioneering and remarkable engineering projects in the world, and again, we're very fortunate to be in that position. However, having a significant and historic oil and gas footprint, as you can imagine, the last 3 years have been, quite challenging for us as a company and the industry in which we operate. But we spent that time transforming our business and given ourselves a platform on which we feel we can continue to grow with confidence and energy, and that relates to some of the embracement of disruption. So the disruptors I'd like to focus on are decarbonisation, technology, emerging economies and the new politic. To cover that in 5 minutes, forgive me, I will be quite brief and succinct in terms of how I feel they affect us as an organisation. And I think the fundamental challenge across the four of them, however, is to really embrace them, capture and make the most of the opportunities that they provide, mitigate the risks, and there are risks in each of these areas, and position ourselves well for the future. So taking each in turn, if we consider the primary energy source as a proxy for decarbonisation, what do we know? We do know there's been a slow but inevitable change over the past 50 years. Largely, there's been nuclear, renewables, and some biomass contribution to primary energy source, but oil and gas remains by far the most significant one. This broadening, however, will actually accelerate through the 2020s, and the outcome of that will be twofold. Firstly, oil and gas will remain the most significant single primary energy source, probably for the next generation to 2 generations. However, there will be inevitably a much broader mix of primary energy sources that we will be using. Even as consumption increases, that will shift, and it will shift quite significantly, we feel, over the next generation and a half. So as a company, particularly a company geared to the oil and gas sector, we've had to do some things to address that and position ourselves. We've broadened our end market exposure quite significantly. We were 90% oil and gas 3 years ago. We're now 55% oil and gas. We've balanced our portfolio of services to align with the markets in which we operate, and we've consolidated our clean energy capabilities. We have a significant position in clean energy, and that will increase over the coming years. And I think decarbonisation in more general terms is a disruptor around which emphasis is very important. It lends itself to positioning, and that's private company, public sector and governmental positioning to manage the risks properly as we decarbonise the economy but still have more to supply as demand increases. And we've got an opportunity to capture in a very deliberate manner the new alternative energy sources. We're in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, and in terms of pace and connectivity, we've never seen something quite like this before. In terms of pace, it took us 100 years to get from a phone to a mobile phone. But in 25 years, we went from a computer to a smartphone. That's an incredible pace attached to that. The adoption of technology is accelerated beyond all recognition. It took some 38 years for 50 million people to have a radio. It took 13 years for 50 million people to have a TV. Even the iPod, which we would see as something of this generation, it took 4 years for 50 million people to have an iPod. Twitter got 50 million users from launch in 9 months. And my favourite of all, Angry Birds, took a month from launch to 50 million people using it. That's incredible. If we consider connectivity, the Internet of Things, the transformation there is also quite astonishing. If I go back to 1987, there was 2 terabytes of connectivity around the globe on the Internet. That's 2 trillion bytes of connectivity. By 2022, most experts anticipate there will be yottabyte levels of connectivity. What's a yottabyte, I hear you all ask? It's a trillion. Think on that in terms of scale. And these are numbers that we've never used since we first started looking at space travel. That's how unfathomable they actually are. So as an engineer myself, I actually find that really exciting. And actually to be at the vanguard of this technical change is a fantastic place for companies like us to be at. With people in them that make them work, they have got the expertise, the talent and the passion to literally engineer new solutions. There's new opportunities out there that need engineered, and that goes across the developed and the developing world, right across our Commonwealth family. As Wood, we're the largest independent automation and control contractor in the world, and we provide some of the most innovating solutions to, amongst others, Jaguar, Land Rover, Ford, and other real global blue-chip customers. We're the largest independent subsea engineering contractor in the world. We've been involved in engineering the deepest, longest, coldest, hottest subsea installations right across the globe, largely in an oil and gas footprint, but increasingly non-oil and gas. We're applying and evolving our digitised offering because we must and we have to, but equally because we're passionate about it and enthused about it. And we do look at where the man-machine interface will move to, and it will move significantly, and it will move significantly in this generation. And we look at artificial intelligence and all of these things. And we have to look at these things with pace, and none of us have a crystal ball. So we have to take positions that set us up most likely for success, recognising the level of disruption, pace, connectivity, and volatility that there is. So technology is a disruptor around which participation rather than emphasis is the most important element. It's a juggernaut which ain't going to slow down at all in our view. And as such, that lends itself to investment, private, public and governmental investment, and also some agility. There's many things I could say about the emerging economies, and we have some great Commonwealth examples of some of the best emerging economies in the world. Two of the most fundamental observations I would offer, however, are around urbanisation. City populations grow by 60 million people per annum. 60 million people per annum are being urbanised. Half of the most rapidly developing cities reside in the Commonwealth. Cities like New Delhi, Chennai, Kuala Lumpur, Cape Town, there are many more. By 2025, 2.5 billion people will reside in Asian cities, and that's 50% of the urbanites across the globe. That's a significant shift. And then in terms of the west to east shift, trade with the east has doubled since 2010, and that will treble within the next decade. And that's significant, trillions of dollars of trade west to east in a way that has only ever went one way. That's evolved significantly just in the last decade. So these emerging economies demand that companies have a geographic and a broader market spread, a good customer spread, a reflective spread of staff and capability, localisation and diversity. At Wood, we've strategically positioned ourselves across 60 countries, and the emerging economies are all about strategic positioning and working together and capturing the opportunities available to forward-thinking institutions, and that's across the private, public and governmental sectors once again. So finally, the new politic. There's been a seismic shift in the body politic, I think we would all agree, around the world in the past decade, but particularly in the last 5 years. And whilst there are many factors at play, the effect of globalisation is probably the single most significant individual factor. On the positive side, over 600 million people have come out of poverty in the last 20 years. That's a phenomenal achievement. And life expectancy has improved by 50% globally since the 1950s. Again, not an insignificant achievement. However, there has been a breakdown in trust with some of the most traditional institutions that we've tended to rely on over the years, particularly in business and political leadership. There is a generation who feels left behind by globalisation. There's a growing sense of inequality and injustice, and the traditional model of capitalism is being challenged like never before. And the millennials, they're much more globally connected, as I've just touched on, and perhaps less reverent to the established way of doing things. So organisations really need to have two things to work in this environment, in my view. They need to have a sustainable proposition and an irrefutable licence to operate. At Wood, we want to remain positioned on a sustainable platform. In the future, we believe the most successful companies will be those that engage meaningfully in being a good neighbour locally and a good corporate citizen globally. We are passionate about, for example, STEM engagement, inclusive education, localisation, skills transfer, and building enduring community relationships, really embedding the businesses in the locales in which they operate. We actually see our sustainability programmes as being a real differentiator on which we can build. So in summary, my reflections. I think disruption brings with it great opportunity, so we need to be adaptable and versatile in taking on these big generational challenges. I think it is a time to be a bit more far-sighted and courageous. Time to position our companies, and for that matter, countries and institutions, to give ourselves the greatest chance of success. We need to be more resilient, better prepared for black swan events, because the black swan events will become ever more common. Technology is an enduring black swan event. The disruption in there will continue. And it's time to be mindful of the more responsive to the global generational trends, be predictive and position ourselves as best we can. I therefore suggest our vision must be clear and focused, our plans ambitious and based on trends and opportunities, rather than a misguided, if well-meaning, extrapolation of the past. The future will be different than the past, we're quite convinced. Disruptions and challenges are inevitable, and investing for the next generation is all about seeing these disruptors and embracing them. And I think if individual private companies do that, and the private sector is successful in doing that, actually we do get employment, we get sustainable employment, we get skills transfer, we get economic development. That then allows us to invest in infrastructure, in education, in health, programs that come with them, sustainable investment to benefit the next generation in much broader terms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. There was much to reflect on there. And it's always interesting for me as a financial services person to listen to an engineer. I'm not sure what a Blast One event is, but I'm curious about finding out. Our final panelist to speak today is Gaurav Burman. Gaurav, as I said, is director of Dabur International, which was founded 130 years ago. And we were reflecting beforehand that Queen Victoria was on the throne, so that was 6 monarchs ago. So Gaurav brings a very different perspective and a perspective that is steeped in a long history. So Gaurav, the investor perspective.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give you a very personal view of investing for future generations, and I'm going to be very brief so we can leave it for questions, leave time for questions. I'm 5th generation in a family business called Dabur. The business was founded in 1884 by my great-great-grandfather, who was an Ayurvedic doctor. Ayurveda is an Indian medicine that is similar to homeopathy, which many of you may be familiar with. My great-great-grandfather, Dr. S.K. Burman, had a small shop in northern India, and he was an Ayurvedic doctor, and people would come to his store with their symptoms, and he would examine them, and after he figured out what they needed, he would run into the back room, and he would start mixing up these remedies, and then he would sell them to them. And quickly he realized that 80% of his customers wanted 20% of the remedies, so in order to be more efficient, he would spend the evenings making up the remedies so he could dispense them without having to run into his room after every session and make them. And then someone came across to him and said, well, you know, since you're making all these remedies and many of these symptoms, people need to come back for the remedy before they've been cured, why don't you sell them and stock them and sell them? And that was the birth of our business. Today, 5 generations later, we're one of the largest FMCG companies in India and the world. We operate in many different sectors: personal care, hair care, food, packaged foods. We're the largest fruit juice business in India. And we listed the business back in 1995. When we listed the business, we had to scratch our heads and say, how do we ensure the future success of this business? How do we ring fence the business so that future generations can benefit from it? And we passed 2 rules. One is that no family member henceforth would have any executive role in the business, so we professionalized the business. And the second rule we passed is that we would dividend 50% of our net profit every year. And the reason for that was we wanted to create income so that the family could not be forced to ever sell shares, and B, so they could invest in we could invest in different things. The The business today is about $3 billion in revenue. We're $11 billion in market cap, US dollars this is. We're growing at 15% a year still. When we created this investment program, we scratched our heads again and we thought, what are we going to do? We don't really know very much. We know India well, but we don't know anything else. And what we decided is that India was liberalizing. So in the mid-90s, as you may remember, India faced a lot of problems. We ran out of foreign exchange. The socialist experiment hadn't worked. Our growth rate had ground to a halt. And Manmohan Singh, who was our finance minister at the time, said, we're going to open up the economy. And at that point in time, many foreign companies, especially from the Commonwealth, for obvious reasons, decided they wanted to be in India. But for one reason or another, they decided they wanted to have a local partner. And that was a good opportunity for us. So over the last 20 years, I manage our investment program. We've done 15 joint ventures, from small to large. A large example would be we own 51% of Aviva in India, which is a life insurance business. A smaller example would be some of our healthcare joint ventures. We have a joint venture with Experian for the credit bureau business. We have a joint venture with a home healthcare business in England. We've greatly benefited from the relationship within the Commonwealth to bring these businesses to India. India is an extraordinary country, and it's a country that has huge opportunity but huge problems. And one of our big problems, if I can call it that, is we benefit from this extraordinary demographic where we have 1.3 billion people, 70% of which are under the age of 30. We have a quarter of the global population of under 25s. But that means we have to create jobs. We have to create 15 million non-farming jobs a year. We have to, this is what we have to focus on, and we hope we're playing our part in that. And we look forward to meeting folks like yourselves who want to come to India, invest in India. We'd like to partner and bring opportunities to India. So that's our story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. Thank you. I would now like to see if there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question. Gentlemen there, and we have got roving mics. Are there any other? We are very tight on time. So if you have other questions, anyone else who wants to speak? If not, the gentleman here, if you don't mind giving us your name and your affiliation, please.
Stephen Wall. I represent the Commonwealth Equality Network. Minister, you talked very powerfully about just and inclusive policies and tolerance. But as you know, in 37 out of the 53 Commonwealth countries, people are criminalized for their sexual identity, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and trans. And I wonder how you see the prospects for people, young people, who face that criminalized future of actually changing laws so that they can be included in the future prosperity of your country.
Minister, yeah.
Well, thank you for this important question, and I want to say that one of our common goals as a member of a Commonwealth family is to create a better future where people will have a just, equitable treatment in whatever they do. At the basis of this goal, I would like to believe that education is the key important element. We have, as you mentioned, the situation where some of our member countries are still going through a difficult period in terms of really giving this opportunity to their population. But I want to think that coming together, sharing together, and trying to address together this concern through education, through proper governance, and through transparent treatment of these issues, this will lead to betterment of our environment wherever you are. It is a global concern. It is a progressive solution which is going to address this question, and it is also solidarity that will lead to the improvement of the situation in the countries we have probably identified. In total, I would like to say we are proud to be together, and we want to learn from each other and help each other in addressing this global concern. It's not a matter of one country, it's a matter of community, and the community should, in a transparent manner, highlight these questions and give proper solution while taking into consideration realities in different countries and address it progressively. This is what I would like to give an answer to your pertinent question. But as I mentioned in the keynote speech of our head of state, we have to invest in the education of our young, our future generation, so that they are capable of dealing with these issues and implementing a better, just environment for all the population.
Okay, lady here, and again, if you don't mind introducing yourself, please.
Hello, thank you. I represent, this is Preeti Chakraborty from Bangladesh, representing FBCCI, one of the highest apex body, that is business body in Bangladesh. Personally, I run healthcare and education, that is hospital, medical college, nursing, and so many things. So I feel Commonwealth is the highest platform to make the connectivity among the countries, among the businesses, among the institutes. So my question is to, especially to Gaurav and maybe others too, how we can make connectivity with our healthcare or education through you or any other countries to develop our country. As because you know, Bangladesh is a country of high population, 160 million people are there, and it's running very fast, even in healthcare, even women empowerment, in everything. Our GDP is, you know, now 7.35 this year, 2017, and per capita income also is growing up. $2 billion is flowing from our country to other countries regarding healthcare. So to develop our healthcare, how we connect, how we can use the Commonwealth platform. Thank you very much.
Gaurav, I think one squarely aimed at you.
Sure. From our point of view, we've been very focused on India to date. However, part of the reason we started to engage with the Commonwealth and with the business group within the Commonwealth was because we'd like to spread our wings. We're new to this community, so we haven't quite figured out, like yourself it sounds like, how to navigate that connection. But you know, I'm sure over time we'll learn from our friends and colleagues here how we can get connected better, and we'd love to explore opportunities within the Commonwealth outside of India. We focus on 3 sectors, healthcare, consumer, and financial services, and we're open in all of those sectors.
I now have a question for Robin, and the Minister made a very eloquent pitch on behalf of investing in Cameroon. You, Robin, and Wood Group have already invested in Cameroon. Do you want to maybe share a little bit about your experience of investing in Cameroon and perhaps in other African or Commonwealth countries?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are a big part of our business is in the extractive industry space. So we've got a big mining business and oil and gas business. So the support we provide in Cameroon was one actually for an international oil company that are based in Cameroon, that operate in Cameroon. But our model, our default model in terms of sustainability is to localize. So with great pride, we within 18 months want to be 95% plus localized in any environment across the globe. Cameroon was a great example where we did that, and I think it's part of our enduring sustainability is the fact that we then localize. And I can rhyme off many examples. In fact, I was speaking to a delegation from Papua New Guinea yesterday. I was in Papua New Guinea myself about 18 months ago, and again, within a year there in support, and it was in support of an IOC. So often we support international oil companies, national oil companies, and increasingly with the new footprint we have, national governments. And when we do that, we always localize. You know, so whether it's, whilst we're a UK-based company, our Canadian business is run by Canadians, our Australian business by Australians. Our Papua New Guinea business is run locally in Papua New Guinea, reports into our Asia network, so we've got a kind of hub and spoke model. But sustainability and enduring relationships are important. Where we've made the most significant global investments actually in India, and we've got about 1,000 engineers that support our global business in Chennai alone.
Okay, and clearly an experience that works for Wood Group.
Oh, it works for us. It works very well.
We've probably about 30 seconds. Do we have any questions in the audience for the last 30 seconds? Well, if not, it just remains to me to thank our panellists representing really, as I said, some very different perspectives, Gaurav Burman, Minister Alamin Usman May, and Robin Watson from Wood Group. So thank you to our panellists.